This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast today, Dakota Mahan.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Now, Dakota, you have listened to every one of my podcasts. Why is that?
Because I produce them. And I should come clean at this point. Some of the more recent ones, I haven't listened to those ones. I've had the assistant. Have you met Chase?
No.
So he's in here sometimes, but I guess hasn't been in here when you're here. But he helps with some of the editing. So some of the more recent ones I haven't.
Okay.
The ones that we haven't released yet.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, you'll catch up with those, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
When they're released, yeah.
For sure. Otherwise I couldn't say I've listened to all of Mark's podcasts. So.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I keep on joking around with people. I tell everyone you're my biggest fan. Sometimes. Well, if they know you, I tell them you're my biggest fan. They're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, he like produces them all. He has to edit them all. They're like, oh, gotcha. So it's one of my favorite jokes.
I love it.
So how'd you get into this?
How did I get into? Have I told you the story?
You have.
Okay. So just for the listeners.
Yeah.
Okay. So my degree's in aviation management. So I went to school. I wanted to be a pilot. Then I wanted more business related. So I switched to aviation management. I started working at the Heber Valley Airport while I was still in school. When I graduated, I got offered a full-time position there with salary. I was the assistant airport manager, and 3 months into it, I realized I don't want to do this. I spent, 4 years getting a degree and all the time and effort to do all that, and just realized that wasn't the path for me anymore. So I put in my 2 weeks notice the next day and had a little mini panic attack trying to think like, what did I just do? I just, threw away pretty much everything I'd done for the past 4 years. And so I made a list of like 6 things that I could do, that I'd want to do, that I'd be good at, I could make money at. One of them was work with Jimmy Rex somehow. I was thinking it would be more in like real estate, maybe not like as an agent, but I liked that he did house flipping. So I pretty much just approached Jimmy and said, look, I put in my 2 weeks notice at my job. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I'd love to come work with you, not necessarily for you. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking for money, but I'm looking for work. And he said, yeah, like, let's figure out something. So I started working for him. And long story short, we ended up opening up the podcast studio. So we do, obviously, your podcast, Jimmy's podcast, Nick, and then several other clients where we just do all of the production, all of the recording, the editing, everything. I mean, you know it, so.
Yeah. So how long has Rookery been open?
We opened the week of Thanksgiving last year. So terrible week to open, but it's worked out. So
yeah,
just under a year.
Well, that's fun, dude. Are we gonna have a party in here for all the podcasters?
Oh, we should. We should do a 1 year celebration.
We should. It'd be kind of fun.
It would.
Yeah, it's how many episodes do you guys think you've produced here? Just all of them.
In the year, probably over 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say over 200, at least 100 for Jimmy, and then you're at 30-ish, just under. Nick's another 10. Yeah, I'd say right around 200, 2 to 250.
Yeah. So next year, in your second year, how many of you guys think you'll produce?
Ooh, that's not something that I've really dived into and thought about. But if we keep getting clients, probably 350 maybe. Yeah.
Oh, you'll do more than that.
You think so?
Yeah, because I bet you next year I'm probably going to try and record 120 to 150.
In 1 year?
Yeah.
So that's what, 3 a week?
Yeah,
150,
two to 3 a week. Yeah. I mean, I record 3 a week now, pretty much.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think I might do them all in 4 blocks once the new year starts, and then there'll be a couple of weeks I won't be here, right? So
that's true. Yeah.
But that's because I have a goal. I want to have 300 out in 2.5 years. So that was my goal.
Wow.
So
It's a lofty goal. I like it. Push forward with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's fun, man. I mean, I love doing this. It's fun doing the podcast.
Well, and you were saying now there's people that are starting to listen to it that you haven't even met before. They have no connections, right? We were at the Halloween party the other night, and a guy came up to you and was like, "You're Mark McCormack, right?"
Yeah. Yeah. So. And I'm like, yeah, who are you? Yeah, it's probably happened to me just shy of 10 times that people I've met that have been like, yeah, listen to your podcast, or I listen to a podcast that you've done, and it makes kind of sense, I mean, I've, we always say our local communities are small communities, and whether you live in LA or New York or Utah, right? But it's like, yeah, I mean, you have a friend who comes on the podcast and they post about it, and then their friends are like, oh, my friend's on that podcast, and then they like it, and then they, it just kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's
true. And what you did, you started off really well. I told you the first 8 weeks are really important. The first 2 months, Apple and Spotify, they'll push you out to more eyes because you're a new creator. And a lot of people don't take advantage of that. Yeah. You released consistently 2 every week, and we've done 2 every week since, but you really took advantage of that. And I think that helped you. And another thing is you post every single time that you have somebody in, you take a photo, you post it, you put it out there, you share it with your friends, they share it with their friends. And that's something that a lot of people don't do when it comes to podcasting. They just kind of expect it'll be out there and then people will gravitate to it, and you have to kind of push it.
Yeah. And I have, so in January, I'm going to launch all my YouTube shorts.
Okay.
And then I've got a huge, I have a plan to have a huge kind of like, I guess SEO push. I'm probably going to push it really hard for 3 months and just see what it does, and then kind of go from there.
Okay.
So I think a bunch of clips, and, like Jonah, our mutual friend Jonah, he's given me a list of a bunch of questions he wants me to get answered and get interviewed on. And they're probably hot topics. I haven't read through every one of them, but they're kind of like hot take kind of things, 2-3 minute long, give advice things, and kind of start pushing those out there. And so, yeah, we'll just keep on growing it and growing and growing it. And it's interesting too, because I don't really have a plan with monetizing it. People ask me about it all the time, like, how are you going to make money? And I'm like, I fund it myself. Like, well, don't you want sponsors? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do that. I just feel like, I mean, we've talked about this, but it takes 2 years to get one of these things really off the ground.
Yeah.
And that's 2 years of being consistent, never missing, Tuesdays and Thursdays forever. That's why I like to bank a bunch of these, so we can kind of have them ready to rock. But yeah, I kind of figured I'll just do the work. I'll grind. We'll do the episodes and try and make them as entertaining as possible and insightful. And then after 2 years, I'll take a look at it and go, okay, do I want to monetize this? Are opportunities coming along my way to monetize it? I guess we'll just kind of see.
That's true. What I tell a lot of people is, who are kind of in your situation where it's a way that you can get your business out there, right? Yeah. And so if you, like you said, self-fund, just toss a ad of your own making on the end of each episode that promotes one of your businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how you learned about Rookery in the first place, right? Was you heard the ad that we put on Jimmy's episode.
Yep, absolutely. That's exactly how I heard about it.
So that's another way of like sponsorship. It's just a self-sponsorship. You're just getting your business out there in front of people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's true. I should probably do a couple ads. We'll see. So. But yeah, you give me the stats. I mean, my stats seem to be pretty good.
They are. They're podcast stats are weird. I've told you this before. Each platform kind of has their own stats, and you have to go with each of them. But on all of the platforms that we've looked at with your stats, it's doing phenomenal for a starting podcast. Yeah. We forget that you've been doing it since June, July, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it was right around June or July that we started. And the fact that you're already at, almost 30 episodes is insane. Nobody cruises through that quick.
Yeah. And it's funny too. Christy was asking me how the heck I fit all this stuff in. And I'm just like, I don't know. You got to be like super efficient. We were talking earlier. I mean, I got home from California to my house last night at about 11:30, almost midnight. And my wife had a friend over, so we ended up talking to her till like 1 a.m. or something like that. And I was finally like, I got to go to bed because, I got to be out of the house by 7:30 to come record. And I don't know. I also kind of like it. It's kind of fun. like just being like super efficient, moving to things, I made a bunch of business phone calls on the way down. Most of the voicemails I had to leave, right? Cause it's Saturday morning, and, I'll follow with these people later on. I just, just got to take every opportunity to just, stay efficient.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So who's your favorite podcast you produce?
Favorite podcast? Oh, if I didn't say Jimmy, I feel like I'd be in some deep water. No. I would say that we'll go with my most recent favorite, and it's because it surprised me, and that's Nick's. Yeah. It surprised me. I thought that I wasn't going to be super into, plastic surgery, but his podcast, I mean, you've heard it. It's not plastic surgery. It's about plastic surgery, and he gets maybe 10% into like the nitty gritty. This is the operation or what was done, but it's 90% about the person that he's talking about, his patients. And I thought that was just so cool. So like I'm learning about plastic surgery, which is interesting now, but at the same time, it's more individualized, I guess, per patient. So I really like that one. That was a unique take.
Yeah, his is very interesting. Now, I have a question for you. Did him and Michael Elisa actually get their shirts off in that podcast?
No.
Oh, I just listened. Nope. I was giving him crap. I'm like, that is my idea. I'm going to kick your freaking ass.
No, he did that just for the listeners.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, Michael Elisa looks a lot better with his shirt off than I do. It's whatever.
It's fair. He's a model, so.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a fitness model. He's a good-looking dude.
Yeah.
So, pivoting, tell me about you.
Tell me about me.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up so I was born in Texas, Fort Worth area. I left when I was 3, and then grew up most of my life in Richfield, Utah area, right? So Richfield and Glenwood. I've also spent time in Cedar City, Las Vegas when I was younger. My grandma and my mother started an insurance agency, and so they always were close to each other. And so anytime either one of them moved, the other one came with, right?
Nice.
And so my grandpa would move for work, my grandma and my mom would follow, and obviously me there. But ever since first grade, it's been Richfield, Glenwood, South Central Utah. So,
Did you like growing up down there?
I did. There's not a lot to do. A town of 7,000 people. And that's like the big town for, miles around. Where I lived, a lot of my life was Glenwood, and that's a town of 500 people, right?
Where is that?
It's, if you're to go south to St. George, it's about halfway in between, right? So Fillmore is kind of on the east side of a mountain. If you get off the freeway I-15 and you're on the west side of the mountain, that's Richfield, Glenwood. Annabelle, Manti is not too far away. So,
gotcha. So I haven't told you this before, but I had 2 cousins and an uncle that grew up in Richfield.
Oh, what were their names?
So, my uncle's name was Clark Mackey.
Clark Mackey.
His wife was named Ursula.
Okay.
So you wouldn't know. My cousins passed away. They both had cystic fibrosis.
Wow.
And so they passed away. One of them died at least 20 years ago. Another one died probably 12 years ago, something like that.
I did know a Mrs. Mackey, but I don't know if she was related to them at all, but she grew up down there. She was a teacher, so.
Oh, she did not grow up down there. So my uncle actually had a wife down there named Sharon. And when she had the boys, right, she actually had a mental breakdown and like a chemical mental breakdown. And so my whole life growing up, she was very nice and kind, but she had like really weird mental things break down. And so as she got older, it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And then she ended up going to a home and then passing away. So and then he died last year. My uncle died last year at like 69 years old of diabetes. And, but and then, so his wife, Ursula, but she actually taught school on the Indian reservation.
Okay.
So there's a reservation around there somewhere. And so she actually taught out there.
Huh.
But
yeah.
You know the rec center down there with the pool?
Yes.
The indoor pool. I've actually raced there. So we used to go down for 4th of July every year. That big celebration in Richfield.
Yeah.
Where you like catch the fish in your shirt and like all
the fish grab. All the kids go in and
We rocked that, bro. We absolutely rocked that. And so, and then I used to do the swimming competitions in that rec center. So I have a lot of really fond memories of Richfield.
It's a good area. It really is.
Yeah, small town, super small town, but I mean, you still get a Burger King or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a lot of events, like you said. A lot of people come there for events, wrestling, basketball. Yeah. We've got Snow College right there, and so the high school uses pretty much college campus for a lot of the things.
Oh, nice.
So all of the students from other schools come there for big events and stuff.
Yeah.
So
which college did you end up going to?
I went to, so I did, because Snow's right there, you can take college classes in high school super easy.
Oh, nice.
So I took a few credits as a junior and senior, and then I finished my bachelor's in 3 years at Utah Valley University.
Nice.
I wanted to originally go to a school called Embry-Riddle because I wanted to be a pilot, right? And this is like the Harvard of the skies is what they call it. And it's got the price tag to match. And so I got a good scholarship to go there. It was probably going to cover about a third of my total tuition. And I ended up going there. I was there for a week and it didn't feel right. I was like, this isn't it. Yeah. So, but I didn't even go to any of the classes on the first day. I ended up just unenrolling from Embry-Riddle and then came back to Utah, went to Utah Valley, and I'm so glad that I did. I would have been in so much debt for a degree that I'm not even really using right now. I mean, I do still do jet management and stuff that we've talked about before. Yeah. So I still have a foot in that industry, but not nearly what I was expecting to.
Yeah. Where is that school at?
Embry-Riddle.
Yeah.
That's in Arizona, Prescott, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
They also have a campus in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Oh, nice.
So
that's not bad.
Yeah.
So when you got out of college, I mean, you told the story about just not liking what you were doing. Mm-hmm. How was that defeating? Because you had this freaking 4-year degree.
What do you mean by defeating?
Like, were you kind of like, I wasted my time in college, or are you?
Yes and no. I wouldn't say that it feels defeating, but there is always that thought of like, could I have gotten a step farther by just going with what I want now? But I mean, I didn't know it at the time, right? I did the best with the information that I had at the time. And at the time I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be in aviation. I wanted to do airport management, right? And I've made some great friendships through that route. And like I said, that led me into jet management, which in turn is an enjoyable part of my life that I'm going to continue forward with. Yeah. We just got a few new aircraft with our company, and so I'm going to go check those out this week before we head to Iceland. So I wouldn't say that like I feel defeated. I'd say that I feel more intentional about where I'm going with my life now.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, if you're still in jet management, I mean, it's still worth getting the degree then.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, I graduated from UVU as well. I graduated in 2007 with a paralegal studies degree.
That's right. You wanted to be an attorney.
I did. And I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, I have friends that are attorneys and like, it's not the worst job in the world. I just think it comes with a cap. You can only make so much money and you gotta live and breathe billable hours and until you get really, really high up, and then you're just, bringing clients in and wining and dining and stuff like that.
But that's like a career capper at that point, right? You're a partner, you're finishing off your last 8 years.
Yeah. Seems to be. Yeah. So I, a couple of my podcasts, we've got into it, especially my brother loves putting me on the spot because I'm kind of anti-college,
Yeah.
And so, and the reason for that is it's a straight investment thing, right? It's numbers and cents, dollars and cents, right? It's what's the return on investment for degrees. And I mean, obviously if you want to be a doctor or an engineer or an architect, like you got to go to college.
Yeah.
And you should go to college. If you want to be an engineer, you should go to college and, learn those skills and hone those skills and stuff like that. But really where it comes down to is when I talk to people who are like, communications degrees, business degrees really for the most business degrees are garbage as well. And so It's just kind of a funny thing. I mean, how do you feel about college?
I agree. I think that it has value when it has value, right? And that's, like you said, the things that you need to go there to physically learn: doctor, engineer, architect, stuff like that. But the stuff that you can learn from life skills, from being in the workforce, from being around other people, is going to be more valuable, in my opinion, than going and learning from a teacher who's never actually worked in that field. They've just taught about it, right? Yeah. So I think it makes more sense to find out what you want to do and then determine the path from there, as opposed to right now we're just told to go find a path, and then it'll just kind of push you out into whatever path you're given, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like good luck.
Yeah. So.
No, it's super cool. It's cool to like go through your life and, you know, kind of like what you're saying, like be a lot more intentional. You know, being intentional with what you do is super, super important, which is why I'm sure you joined We Are the They.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. That was actually, I don't think I've told you this part of the story, but when I approached Jimmy and was like, look, I want to work with you. You can have 90 days free. That's how much cash I have saved up to live comfortably. At the end of the 90 days, like, we'll find a way to keep me around or not. When I told him that, and then he brought up the idea of like opening up the studio and doing all of this and learning that, I said, yes, I'll do that. But you've teased it like this men's coaching program. I don't know what it is. You haven't really told much about it. It was just after his trip to, his birthday trip back in the October. Yeah, his Moab trip for his birthday. And he kind of hinted, hey, I'm going to open this up. And I had no clue what it was, but I was like, I'll do the studio. I'll learn it. I'll be good at it. Like, I'll be the best at it. But I want to be involved as much as possible with this coaching thing that you've teased. Yeah. And he's like, all right, yeah, like, let's pull you on board with this too, and we'll figure it out. So I felt very called to that. And you're right, being very intentional has come along part of that.
What have you liked about We Are the They?
What have I liked? Just about everything. It's super amazing to see all of these men that want to change their lives, but are actually doing it, right? Because I feel so many people in life, they want something, but they don't actually do it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's good to see people who are actually doing it. They're making the change. Yeah. They're stepping up and being what they should be, what they want to be, what the world needs them to be. I think that to me is the most impactful thing and what I've enjoyed the most so far. Yeah. But you know, Iceland's good. The Bahamas are good, right? Yeah. No,
I'm super excited about Iceland. So for me, it's really cool because I get to go up there for 5 days with all you guys, and we're going to bro hard and, you know, do all the stuff that we do. And, which, you know, to kind of give some more detail to people listening to this, you know, well, you actually probably know, tell what's going on in Iceland. I actually don't know the activities that we're doing.
Have you not looked over the itinerary yet, Mark?
Once. See, my attitude was, I'm just going to do everything. Yeah. So when Iceland came out, I just paid my money with the credit card. And then when they said, these are the flights to get on, I booked the flights. And so I know we're going snowmobiling, and I know we're going to see the Northern Lights, and that's all I can remember.
Yeah. So there's a few different Northern Light tours that we're going to be doing. It's peak season for the Northern Lights, but it's also kind of rainy and snowy there right now, right? And so the lights are more visible when there's less cloud cover, and you have to find where the less cloud cover is. And so we're going to be going with some tour guides by boat, by like those big jacked up off-road Iceland vehicles that you've seen. Yeah. We'll do some tours with that. Like you said, snowmobiling on a glacier. We'll obviously see all like the main attractions, the waterfalls and the black sand beaches, stuff like that. There's also a place, it's the only place in the world that you can scuba dive and snorkel in between two tectonic plates, right? Oh, wow. So there's like this big fissure that has glacier runoff water that's filled it up. And I think it's like up to 60 or 70 feet deep. But it's literally in between Europe and North America. And so you can be underwater touching two continents at once. So I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, that's way cool.
So that'll be a fun one. It'll be cold for sure. But they've got all the dry suits, wetsuits, stuff like that. What else do we have? The Blue Lagoon Thermal Spa. If you've seen, that's like one of Iceland's huge attractions.
I've heard of that one. Yeah. My wife told me about it because
yeah,
she's coming up for my final 5 days after you guys all go home.
Are you going to bring her to that as well? Yeah. It's one of Iceland's most known things, so it'll be good. Yeah. But that's the main itinerary pretty much.
Are we doing any self-improvement stuff while we're there? Or?
We'll do some activities and stuff. Even where I'm super involved with We Are the They, Jimmy still keeps some of those things as a surprise, I guess. And so I don't know exactly what the activities are going to be until we actually do them.
Nice. Okay, good.
Yeah. Good. So that'll be fun. I can tell you that in the Bahamas, before we opened up for the second round, one of the big impactful things that we did was we had a campfire one night, big old bonfire right next to the ocean. And we were all gathered around the fire, and we went around and each person shared the biggest improvement that they've had in the past 6 months since joining We Are the They. And then after we all went around, so we said that, and then the next 6 months, what's something that like you're really going to work on, right? Something that you've really wanted to improve, whether it's, financial, relationship, whatever it is. And it was a way to kind of, again, be accountable to everyone there, but also show them the improvements that we've made. So that was really, really impactful. I liked that a lot. And then just standard things, hanging out, poker, just whatever.
Yeah, having a good time.
Yeah.
Are we traveling a lot around the island?
So I think the first 2 nights we're going to be in Reykjavik, and then the following 3 nights. So it's either 2 and 3 or 3 and 2. But the following ones will be on the other side of the island, right? Yeah. But I think just those 2 hubs is what we're doing.
Okay, good. That makes sense. It's funny, dude. I rented a 5-bedroom house, like on a lake. You know what I mean? It's all secluded and it's like really, really cool. Because I figured a couple guys would like stay with their wives after.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that stayed.
No way.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, whatever. I mean, I always get like a built-in sauna inside the house and like all this stuff.
Oh, man.
So it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. I thought that there were going to be a few others that were bringing their wives after.
People were saying they were going to, and no one did. So at least that I know of. I don't know if anybody else did. I mean, there's a couple guys I don't know yet that are going. So, but yeah, it's going to be fun. What's your biggest growth that you've had in We Are the They?
My biggest growth? I'm a lot more confident than I used to be.
Good.
Great, right?
Yeah.
I didn't really know that I wasn't confident before. I was just kind of like going through life, right? But I honestly was not. Like, seeing myself now versus then, I can see a huge improvement. And I want to say back in July, 4th of July at Jimmy's firework event. Did you go to that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was that every year. I ended up going this year and obviously ran into a lot of the We Are the They guys. A lot of them came. And that night, like 3 different people were like, Dakota, like you're so much more confident the way that you're holding yourself and like presenting yourself. And that was when it like really clicked to me, when 3 people in one night had seen a change in the past 7-8 months from me. I started like connecting the pieces and being like, oh yeah, like I actually am more confident. Like I don't really care what other people think. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I just don't care about that. Right. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. How do you feel about group 2? Like when you see the guys from group 2, what do you think?
What do you mean?
Just what do you think?
I love them. Love group 1, love group 2. I'm in a very unique position where I get to be involved with all of the groups, right?
I think most people in group 2 think you're in our group.
And I kind of think I am too, right? Yeah. Which is good. Like that's the thing. I want to be there to connect with them, especially where I'm doing a lot with it. If they have questions and stuff, I want to be able to answer it, and I want them to be comfortable knowing that I can answer anything, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I'm I'd say that I'm more part of group one, right? Because that's my original group where I started with, and I wasn't even fully knowing that I would be helping out with group two as well.
Yeah.
And then I just started doing it. I don't know, it just happened. But where I've already done the activities, done all of the things at Deludis's, the mastermind events, I feel like I can be there more as a support than as a participant, right? And then allow some of the other guys who are there helping out to be sure that they get the time that they need to for the big activities.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm a part of both groups, love both groups, but group one is still like my original one, while the second one is I'm there to support, I'm there to help, and also connect with everyone. But it's amazing, like being able to create the connections in group two that I have, like you and some of the other guys that I've just really connected with are just as good as any of the friends that I have in group one or my friends growing up, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. They both have a special place in my heart. So
it'll be interesting. You know, I'm 41 now, and like you go through periods of time where you have like your friends will just change, right?
Yeah.
And you're are you 25 or 26?
25. I'll turn 26 in January.
Right. 26 in January. So you're gonna you know you got basically 100 high performing dudes between the two groups that you've kind of like become embedded with and became friends with, and like, you know, it's a 2.5 year program, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So after 2.5 years, it'll be very interesting to see like how those relationships stay or go, or like, you know what I mean? Like, and what actually kind of comes of that. You know, I think a lot of people nowadays kind of stick with their high school buddies until they die. You know what I mean? And now it's like, you know, you've got your high school buddies, you got your friends, you've got the we are the they guys. And then, you know, then you're gonna have people you meet during business, and like, you know, it's like this huge hodgepodge of like relationships that you're gonna be able to like foster and kind of move throughout your life. Have you considered the value of like those friendships coming out of We Are the They?
Yeah. Like to me, that's one of the best parts of it that I glossed over, is the relationships that we're able to create. They go a lot deeper than your standard relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like I would not have thought that me and you would be, like if it weren't for We Are the They, we probably never would have connected and really become friends. But you're right, these guys are all high performing. But more than that, they're just super good, genuine dudes, right? And the fact that they're being drawn to We Are the They shows that they're wanting to improve and be better, which I mentioned before, right? And I think that's more important than the value if we were to put it on like monetarily, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they've made a lot of money, but they're better people, and that's more attractive to me because it's going to make me want to be better. It's going to help me be better. And then that in turn just leads back to everything else with having a good life. So yeah, I've definitely weighed the value of those friends, and it's amazing. My brother was texting me the other day about Iceland. He's like, "Oh, who you going with?" And I told him, you know, the We Are the They guys. And he was asking like how close I am with all of them. And I was like, honestly, there's probably about 20 that I know for certain, like no matter what happened, if anything happened, like they're there, they're going to be there, they're going to help me, whether that's physically, emotionally, financially, whatever it is, they're going to be there. Yeah. And then I said probably another 50 that are like good, close friends, right?
Yeah.
30 of those I'd put on par with friends I grew up with my whole life. Yeah. And then the other 20, you know, just good friends. And then maybe 30 that I just haven't really connected that well with yet.
Well, it'll be interesting too. I mean, if any of us throw a party or want to go do something, I mean, it's like, you know, you've got, probably 70 guys with FOMO, right? So it's like, where are we going? What are we doing? How are we doing this, right? And it's like, I kind of can see this. I mean, some of that will fade for sure, right?
Yeah.
Because life happens to people, you know. You got people of all different ages. You know, people will get sick, they'll move, they'll have life events happen. You know, they could get depressed. You know, things could change, lose a job, lose a business, start a business. You know, get a new job. There's all sorts of things that can happen to that core group of people. But I think with how many people that you meet, I mean, you're going to end up. I mean, if both of us end up having 5 to 10 guys that it's just like we're lifelong brothers with kind of thing, like it's like invaluable.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the ratio I think when it all boils down, and it could be much more than that, you know. I'm assuming we'll be having, you know, 5-year reunions and 10-year reunions and maybe even yearly retreats that we all do together. I don't know. I mean, we'll see kind of how it all naturally evolves. But, you know, I mean, can you imagine, you know, every year we have like a big We Are the They barbecue in like a park somewhere? Like it'd be super fun.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have all these guys and we have all these memories, and because we're in this group, we're trying to get as tight with everybody as we possibly can. And, you know, like I feel like we are insanely efficient with our time. You know, when we go on these trips, I mean, I don't sleep.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, we're up till 2, 3 in the morning. We get up. I mean, Jimmy wakes our ass up at like 6 to do yoga or meditate or whatever. You know? Moab, Nick and I were getting up at 5 and going for walks because we were doing the 75 hard thing, you know, and then we were coming back and everyone was up and there's just like a buzz. There's like a, you know, it's kind of like, I'll sleep on Monday when this thing's over, you know, like I got the time with my guys right now. And I just don't think you mess around, you know, you get real deep in conversations. It's like, what are you scared of? What do you need, you know? And like, what's kind of the general consensus of everybody? And you know, I think people really step up. You know, like, did you go to the Lions in America thing?
No, I wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
But did you end up making it?
No.
Or you were,
No,
you were.
Thursday night. Yeah. I bought a table and just, I hit the group up and I was like, hey guys, I have a table of 8. Whoever wants to go, first come, first serve. And like, I think maybe one couple said they were going to take it. And then I hit James up and I'm like, James, just grab a bunch of people, free table, put them on there. And then I told him though, I was like, hey, you need to pick people who will spend money at the event. Like that's what these things are for, you know? So I don't know I have no idea who he brought. And so, but I know we put a little post out in our group text, right? That was just like, hey guys, thank you so much. I cannot believe how supported I feel. And, you know, and it's like, it's like, you know, when you ask the group to do stuff, I mean, people just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Like a couple of guys, you know, were financially struggling and it's just like, what do you need? How much? You know what I mean? We bought a guy a car.
Yep.
It was kind of cool.
So cool.
You know, and I don't know, man. And you know, where I'm at in life, I just don't even think about it. I'm like, how much you guys need, Jimmy? And it's just like this amount of money, boom. You know what I mean? And then it's kind of done. So, but yeah, it's fun. Super fun.
It is.
So,
it really is.
What's the bad side of We Are the They? Have you found anything yet?
The bad side. There's always obviously room for improvement, right? Group 1, which you know is very the guinea pigs, right? Like it's Jimmy's first group.
Yeah.
It's the start of a global movement, and it's really trying to figure it out. So with that, there's just a lot of adjusting and making sure that things are right. We've got it narrowed down to, or I guess dialed into almost like a science. Like we've got like the Costco runs, for example, right? Like me and Zom, when we go, we know exactly what we need. We know how much we need to feed 50 guys, right? And we're getting it down really good. I'd say the hardest part about it is the time crunches that we have. Like you said, it's go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And that's not only for the people there as participants, the guys, the group. It's also like that for the workers, right? Because we're also staying there. We're trying to connect. We're trying to participate, but at the same time, cook all of the meals, keep it clean, do all the logistics, and get everything ready.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's the only thing that I could really say is bad, is just like trying to get everything fit into such a short amount of time that we want to.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Because we go to Iceland, and then you guys have another event in December, right?
Yep. So we go to Iceland, and then in December we'll be going to Phoenix with Group 1.
Group 1.
Yep.
When's Group 2's next, Ludus?
January. I want to say it's January, mid-January, 15th to the 18th, maybe something like that.
No, it's not going to be then because we have the couples trip.
That's right. That's the couples trip. So
somewhere in January though.
It's over my birthday. It's the 26th, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Oh, what the heck? It's over your birthday.
It's over my birthday.
Planning on Jimmy. All right, cool. Well, to be celebrating. Are you going to come to that one?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
Planning on it.
We'll celebrate you after.
There we go.
Well, there and after. Feel special on that thing.
Okay.
No, dope. Super dope. So what's next for you, my friend?
What's next for me? Keep pushing forward with Rookery. Keep bringing in clients and hopefully expanding this. Keep pushing forward with We Are the They. I really do believe it's a global movement. It's something that men need in their lives and they aren't getting elsewhere. Like, it's really one of a kind thing.
Yeah.
So right now, those are the two big next steps for me.
Good. What are your goals in life as a 25-year-old man?
My goals in life.
Yeah.
I had a lot of big financial goals growing up, right? Like a lot of kids do, right? All kids want to have the best and the nicest things. I still think that's a part of me, but it's become less so. The biggest part, or I guess the biggest goal of my life is to make myself a good person, be a good person. And it sounds super simple, and some days it feels like it, some days it doesn't. But there was some advice I heard when I was in high school, and it kind of counteracts be yourself, right? Like, you hear that all the time, be yourself. But it's so hard to know what that is, because you, no matter what, you're always you, right? Like, are you supposed to be you that gets angry when something bad happens? Like, that's still a part of you, but should you be that? So the advice that I heard was make yours a good self. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably my biggest goal, is me just like curating my life to where I'm a good person, people like to be around me, and I'm happy, right? So that's my biggest goal.
Yeah, well, that's really good. You're more on tune with my goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we did that first thing, everyone's talking about all their financial goals, and I'm just kind of like, let's look at financial goals. It's like, what makes you a better person? What makes you really happy? Set yourself up for like a good life, Yeah. Not even set yourself up for a good life. It's like, enjoy your good life now. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's one thing that does surprise me about you, right? Like, you've got the money that you could blow it and spend it in really whatever you wanted to, but you're not big into cars. Like, I've never seen you really even bring up like any flashy car or anything. Like, so my question for you would be, what do you spend money on? Like, what is it that gives you joy as opposed to like just buying a car like some people do?
Stocks. I like spending money on stock.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, on the frivolous side, what do I spend money on? And I kind of blow it on. Probably travel. Travel's where I don't mind spending some money, Like, I'm not staying in a 3-star hotel. Mm-hmm. It's just not happening anymore. Like, flying down to Brazil and Argentina, I'm flying first class with my wife, you know what I mean? That costs a little bit of coin. There's kind of two reasons for that. I justify it because I'm big. It really does. Like, if I'm in economy for 9 hours, like I'm hurt. Like, I've got to like stretch, and like, it'll take me a couple of days to really like recover from that, But I also like my ass kissed up in freaking first class, right? Like,
who doesn't?
Yeah. They're bringing me drinks, asking me how I'm doing. They all call me Mr. McCormack, you know what I mean? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's kind of fun, but like, and it's a little bit more enjoyable, I mean, it's a little bit of a beat down to travel, especially internationally, like in coach, just because you don't sleep well, you're kind of uncomfortable, and like when we come back from Argentina, like the next day I'll be going to work, right? And
yeah.
like,
so you've got to make sure that you're rested, you're feeling good, you're at your A game.
Yeah. And I, I'm not really into flashy cars. I think once you buy some expensive vehicles, like my current truck is probably, when I got everything done to, it was about $105,000, But the reason why I bought that truck is because of the Section 179 tax code, right? The 6,000 pound vehicle equipment
Gotcha.
thing. So I can like write that off of my taxes. And like, I don't buy many vehicles that I don't have some sort of a tax advantage with, Mm-hmm. Also, like, I straight up don't fit in a Lamborghini.
That's fair.
Not fit. And they're super expensive to maintain, and they're cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I look at them and envy's not the right word, because I could just go buy one if I wanted one, right? But like, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, it would be kind of cool to like roll around in a Lambo or like, something like that. But But yeah, I just don't fit. And the maintenance on them are crazy. So the way I look at things, I've been buying stock since I was 21, right? So I got home from my mission and I started investing in the stock market. It was $500 a month to start off with, right? And then I started to see some success with that, right? I started to see that grow. And then I was a big Warren Buffett guy and I was a big Dave Ramsey guy. And so every time I got a bonus or a tax return back then, I would either put it I would pay off debt with it or I would buy stocks with it. And so I built a very robust stock portfolio over the years. And so if I look at, here's something I'm struggling with right now, right? I want to take my family boating. So I bought an older boat, right? Okay. For two reasons. Number one, so I can beat the shit out of it, right? If my wife drives it into a barge, I don't care, right? And then, but my friends, right, they all have these very expensive boats. Like I have a friend that has a $400,000 ski nautique, right? Oh. And I go on it and I'm like, dude, this boat is amazing. Like it's so cool. It looks cool. It's a big flex. You know what I mean? He makes really good money as well. And, you just feel like a pimp in these things, right? Like they're very, very nice. But the way I view that is $400,000 not sitting in an investment. And because you really should never finance a boat, right? You should always pay cash for it, right? And there's a long reason for that. So I look at that. If I was to take $400,000 away, and let's just say I make, I generally make more than 10% on almost every investment I've been in, including stock, right? This year is not going to turn out that way because we're correcting, right? But over time, I'm probably closer to 15, 18% a year in returns. But just to say it's 10%, that's $40,000 a year that I'm not making. But not only am I not making, that's $40,000 a year that I'm not reinvesting, right? So this year it would have been $440,000, right? Then next year it would have been $484,000 of growth. You know what I mean? Then it starts growing. It starts exponentially growing up from there. And so I have a really hard time in my mind justifying that kind of frivolous spending. And so just because it's just taking away from the investment. But at some point in your life, you've made enough money that you need to you don't need to, but you should be able to live comfortably if you want to, right? And so my wife will always probably drive some sort of an SUV. We have a big GMC Denali right now, and then I have my big Ford truck, and so I'll probably be a truck guy the rest of my life. I might get a little small SUV to like an Escalade or something like that to bump around in, or I don't know, something in that world. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, to answer your question, I don't really, other than travel, restaurants. Never mind. It's restaurants. Okay. Yeah.
That's fair. Food's good.
Yeah, I like food. Thinking, I'm like, I will spend almost anything in a restaurant that I feel like spending. So probably food and travel. That's kind of where I like to spend my money. So I'm not a big flashy watch guy, even though I love watches, but it's the same thing, right? My favorite watch is like $250,000. So if I was to buy that, I would just look at it every day and just be like, oh, I just lost $1,000 this month. You know what I mean? And and then it's not exponentially growing. And
is it an AP or a?
It's a Patek.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do like, I like Ricard Malays and I like Pateks. So it's a Philly Patek, whatever that is. So they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I bought some expensive things in my life, I bought my wife a couple Louis Vuitton purses and that kind of stuff. And both of us were just like, this is the biggest ass waste of money. They're nice, but there's so many fakes and there's so many Louis Vuittons to begin with. And it's it's not rare. The fakes looks just as good as the real ones. So it's
yeah.
In fact, I was just talking to my cousin about this yesterday as we were flying back from LA. And I'm like, I'm going to put that stupid purse up on StockX. And my wife won't even care. She doesn't actually wear it around because she thinks it's too flashy. She thinks it's look at me,
So it makes her almost embarrassed to want to carry it around.
Yeah. She'll never wear it when her friends are with us. And because she doesn't want to be the woman that's just like, oh, look at me, floating around on.
Which, if you know Michelle, she is the least of that. She doesn't care about that.
No, we're just down to earth. We just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As you know. So yeah. We just want to have a good time and, enjoy our friends, enjoy our children, and just be present and have the relationship stuff. That's really what's mostly important to me. If anyone's like, hey, we got to get together, let's rent a cabin, dude. I'm like, I'm all about it. I'm on Vrbo and freaking Airbnb trying to find a cabin, and I don't even care if people pitch in, it's just like, let's go have some fun. Let's go knock this thing out. So
I love that.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So you, obviously going along with that, successful financially, successful, in your relationship, successful as a father. When was it that we all see this, I see this, everyone around you sees this, this, but when was it that you really knew I've got a good life. I've built something amazing. Was there ever a specific point in your life that you recognized that?
Oh, that's a good question. Different things hit at different times. I would say that, so let's talk relationship wise with my wife and I first. It was probably 12 years into our marriage. We're 18 years in, that I had a moment where I thought, I was I picked a really good life partner. You know what I mean? Not that I didn't think that along the way per se, but when you get married in your early 20s, you start having kids and you're trying to work and you're just trying to I don't know, pound through life, you don't, at least I never looked at my wife I might get out of this one day, or is she really the one? You know what I mean? I kind of assumed she was just the one because we had agreed, when we got married, we were doing this forever, right? But then you see other relationships fail for a variety of different reasons, good reasons, bad reasons, mediocre reasons. And you start evaluating your own relationship. And I think that's when it was that I was I've got a really good thing here, Mm-hmm. And then I would say in the last 2 years, and maybe they pulled it out of me a little bit more as well. In fact, it did. Some of the relationships I've made in We Are the They, I've had people in that group actually come to me and say, hey, dude, the reason I like you? And I'm like, why? And they're like, because you're good to your wife. Oh, okay. You talk about her, you're complimentary of her, and that's very admirable. I've had multiple people tell me that. And to me, I just kind of assume everyone's like that, right? But they're not. There's a lot of people in marriages that are hard. They might be going through a period that's hard. And not that my wife and I haven't gone through hard things, but it's just kind of, you kind of build it. But yeah, I mean, when did I realize I was successful? Probably the first time it crossed my mind was, 6 or 7 years ago. And then the last year I've become extremely grateful for having such a good relationship. And it is a very successful relationship because both of us really put the time in for that.
Yeah.
With my kids, I would actually say I'm struggling, fully accepting a level of success with that, even though my kids love me to death. When I come home, they're all over me. You know what I mean? I can't eat without a kid sitting in my lap. You know what I mean? They're all over me and they love me. And I've done my best to be present in their life. And the next 10 years of their lives, I'm going to be present for literally everything. I won't miss a thing. You know what I mean? And so that makes me happy. Financially, the first time I made $1 million was interesting. Or the first time my net worth crossed $1 million. I look at financial success in a personal financial statement. So if you were to take your world and say, okay, these are my assets, these are my liabilities, and this is my cash flow, what's that number at the end of the day, right? So it's basically a P&L for a business. And so when I crossed $1 million, because when I was a kid, I thought $1 million was not unobtainable, but crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man, when I get there, I'll have a yacht and I'll have a boat and I'll have a, big house and all this kind of stuff. And once my assets kind of crossed that, it was actually really unclimatic. It was just and it was just me in my office sitting there. I was like, oh, we're kind of there. We're actually over it when I actually calculated it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I went home and told my wife about it. I'm like, hey, we're worth $1 million now. And she was like, oh, cool. Whatever. You know what I mean? It was just no big deal. And then, as that grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, I've kind of created a system inside my own world where, once you start investing, some investments just pay you no matter what, right? They don't care if you wake up in the morning. They don't care if you go to a job, if you invest in, pick anything. Some of the restaurants I'm invested in, right? They just cut me a check every quarter, right? It doesn't even cut me a check. It gets deposited into my bank account, right? And then I still have the value that I have inside that restaurant. And then once you really realize how debt and inflation works, and then when you build that system, it's almost impossible for you not to be successful inside of it. And so when I built stock portfolios for people, like I kind of explained that to them, right? I'm like, you'll never sell this. You know, you're only going to sell a stock that's going to fail, right? So say you own like Blockbuster, right? Or JCPenney's or Sears or something like that. Like there's market conditions that are murdering this business, get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why you hold stock forever is because it's what ultra wealthy, like multi-billionaire people do, right? They'll hold the stock forever because if they need money, they'll just loan against it. You know what I mean? If they actually need cash for something, they'll just loan against their assets. You never actually sell it because if you sell it, then you have a taxable event, right? Taxes are the enemy to becoming wealthy. And so that's why a lot of people, when you hire like teams of attorneys and CPAs to like avoid paying taxes, as long as you never have to pay tax, you know, you can just keep on exponentially growing your net worth. So, but I would say my early 30s, you know, 10 years ago is when I was like, oh, I'm pretty successful and my plan's working. Mostly because my wife and I put a plan in place in our early 20s. By 10 years later, you know, it was like, oh, this is working. You know, the last 4 or 5 years, I'm like, oh, this is working really well. You know, and now I had the freedom to kind of choose to do whatever I want. I could sell my businesses, I could sell assets, I could throw all my money in investments and never work another day in my life, or, you know, I kind of have those options now, and it's gives you a lot of freedom.
So with that freedom and the option to do whatever you want to do, because like you said, you could, what's something that you want to do, but you still haven't done? And why not?
I want to take a company public. And I'm working on that. So
which one are your companies?
I'm trying to decide if I should say it or not. It's ADP Lemco.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and take ADP Lemco public. To do that, I have to go and acquire some competitors and things. And so there's a lot of strategic moves I have to make to really do that. So I'll bring private equity money in. We'll go gobble up some stuff, and then we'll get the valuation to a certain point, and then take the company public. So I also have another business that I could potentially take public, but it's in its infancy. So we'll see if we take it that way.
Okay.
It really just depends. Taking the company public is an exit, right?
Yeah.
And so it just depends on how you want to exit. If you can, it takes a long time, right? So my main goal with going public is I want to stand on Wall Street and I want to ding that bell one time. I think that would be a really cool life event to say.
That would be cool.
You know, yeah, I either open or close. I think it's just close. You just close the stock market. So hit the bell and be done. I also want to build a legacy brand that will last generations. And so I'll probably do that in the spirit world. That's kind of the path that I've kind of chosen to take. Something that will either bear my name or my family's name in some fashion. But that will be something I'll have to strike when the time's right. Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much it. The two things. So, because I'm kind of at the point too in my life, like I keep joking with people, you know, you're at my birthday, right? And I'm like, hey, I'm 41. I've only got 39 more years left. You know, and people are like, what the freak, dude? You know, and it's like, it might be. I mean, you make it to 80, you've lived pretty good, right? And you start thinking about that, man. It's 39 more summers. It's 39 more winters. It's 39 more, you know, birthdays. And it's like, yeah, how many of these do I want to spend grinding and doing deals and making deals and taking risks? And,
yeah,
you know, I probably have 9 more years where I'm going to be willing to take a risk and invest time into something. Outside of that, after I turn 50, I probably won't operate any businesses. I'll have all my businesses. I'll either install a general manager to run, or I'll sell off portions of it, right? So if I own 100% of a company, I'll probably sell 80% of it off, keep 20%, put a general manager in place, and then just take that money, invest it, and then run that company from a board.
What would you do with your stocks at that point? Keep them?
I'll never sell my
keep
stocks.
Going? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just pass those down when you.
Yeah, everything's in a trust.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I don't really own anything. It's kind of one of those interesting, you know, the structure of it. Yeah. So when I die or my wife dies, I'll just pass on. The trust will pass on to the children, and then I'll ruin the next generation after them with wealth, and they'll all be shitheads. But won't be my problem. I'll be dead. So whatever.
Yep, exactly.
So wealth is an interesting thing because if you build it to a certain level, it's hard to break. Like you have to do stupid things to break it. And so,
yeah.
You know, I have like one tool that I use is life insurance policies. You know, so you front end load them so they have a certain cash value, then you borrow against them, right, at a really low rate, and then you never pay the money back because when you die, the death benefit actually pays all the loan back. But it's a really good way for you to get tax-free money because you're just taking a loan from yourself. You basically act as a bank, and then when you die, the insurance policy pays off the balance and some generally.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
then all that money will go back into a trust. Yeah. So it's a whole life insurance policy. If you ever are bored and want to Wikipedia or something.
I may need to.
Yeah. So that's why our calls with the investing stuff's interesting. I'm waiting for them to kind of get into like the more heavy stuff because, you know, like buying stock, I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
What did you think of the call with this recent one that we had with Garrett Gunderson on the We Are the They?
To be honest, I asked a couple of questions. He kind of answered one and didn't answer the other one. And so, like, I asked him, what would he do if you had an exit of like $5 million or something like that? And he said, keep all the money in cash, right? And then I said, well, how do you know what market condition, what market indicators are for you for a buy? And then he said, well, right now is a buy. Well, then I'm like, well, would you keep the money in cash or would you go and buy investments? Like, you didn't really answer my question. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was open to what he was saying. I don't think, he talked a lot about investing in yourself and investing in your own brand. And I think people take that to like social media. They think they're like, oh, I'm going to build my brand, right? And it's like, that's not exactly what he's saying. Like if your brand is the business that you own, that's the brand that you need to build up, right? So kind of keep investing in things you can control, you know? Yeah. What did you think about what he said?
I actually really liked it. Like you said, me and you are different in how expansive our knowledge on finances are at the moment. And so I thought that it was good. I was having a hard time keeping up with everything. I need to go back and re-listen to it. But I actually really liked it.
Yeah. I think he's a good, inspiring guy, and he's done a damn good job, right? I mean, he's definitely an expert in the field. I also think when you're talking to 50 guys, like it's pretty hard to get specific.
That's true.
And I don't, I've spoke a few times. I've been on a few panels and things, you know. Mm-hmm. But the fun thing with me is no one knows how much money I'm worth, nor will they ever.
Yeah.
You know, I keep on trying to tell my wife how much money we're worth, and she doesn't even listen to me.
But so, at that point, it doesn't matter. Like you're happy, you've got your family.
Yeah. In fact, it was funny. So I was flying to Seattle earlier this year, and I actually don't like to watch any media on the planes anymore, unless I'm on a long international flight. Then I got to pay attention to something, right? But so I was just kind of sitting there and had my earbuds in, and I was just like listening to music or maybe a podcast or something. And I'm like, dude, my freaking wife has no idea all of our assets, and I'm like, she needs to know. And so I sat there and for an hour and 40 minutes wrote an email to her, right? That was like, this company, this is what it's worth. This company, this is how much we own. This is how much it's worth. Don't ever sell for anything less than this. This is the value in this one. And I like broke it down like I was dead, right? And I'm like, these are the 4 people that you're going to contact if I die. The attorneys, the CPAs, they know the value of this stuff. They'll walk you through it. You're not alone. These are the people that will run this business. These are the people that run this business. Dude, I broke it down like hard. I was just sitting there like this, just going.
Well, yeah, an hour, 40 minutes, you said.
Yeah, for an hour, 40 minutes. Yeah, I barely edited anything, you know. I mean, I basically like read the paragraph, edited it, made sure it was right, and just moved on to the next one. It was probably a 7 or 8 page long email, right? Like a single line email. And when I landed, I didn't buy the data package that time. So when I landed, I just like sent it, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm walking, dude, and I like go to get my rental car. And my phone's blowing up. She's like calling me, right? And I'm like denying the phone call because I'm like talking to somebody, you know, trying to get in this car. She's calling me. And I'm finally like, hey, what? And she's like in tears almost. She's like, why did you send this to me? Well, she thought I was like going to commit suicide or something. It was like my last letter to her, just like, don't screw this up kind of thing. And I was like, no, I just was on a plane. And I'm like, hold on a second. I'll call you back. I'm totally fine. And I got in the car and drove out, showed my license, and started driving wherever I was going. I'm like, dude. And she's just like, this is like so random. And I'm like, I know, but like, you need to know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if I died in a plane crash, like you need to know like what we own and like how it works and how they tie together. And like, it's not like we're some financial whizzes or like, but it's complicated. There's levels to it, and I'm like, and if there's another life, I'll be pissed if you sell one of these businesses for 25% of what the value is. You know what I mean? I built these damn things, like there'll be people that will come out of the woodwork and want to help you out and run these businesses as long as you give them ownership. And it's like, hell no, sell that to this group. This group wants to buy it. I am in negotiations for this group to buy us out. And she was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, hey, just take a deep breath. When I get home, we'll go over the whole thing so you can really see the picture. And that was a funny moment. For me, it was really funny because obviously not going to commit suicide. I'm too arrogant for that. But, and it's like, but at some point too, it's like, yeah, I just want to live a good life now. I just want to have good relationships with people and just help people and have fun. I mean, that's why I like the journeys, like I feel like I connect with people. I don't mind being bold and being wrong. Like it's just, it's fun to get into those situations and talk to people and just be, hey, where you at? What's going on, man? Do you need a friend? Like, do you need some good advice? Because I didn't really feel like growing up, especially like building my own wealth, I didn't really feel like I had a lot of like really good advice. I didn't really have like a full-on mentor that really walked me through all that stuff,
Yeah.
I did a little bit of trial and error, and then, I got lucky in some things and I learned how to value businesses. I used to do hard money lending, and it just taught me how to like value a business. So I could talk a broker, or I could talk a lender into, loaning on a hard money deal that I was trying to get done. And, I learned a lot. It was like basically like a PhD in finance. And so, it's been good to kind of have that stuff happen to me. And what I really want to do, I like to pass my knowledge on to people but give them like the real knowledge, like what's your situation? Well, I have $2,000 extra every month that I can put into an investment. Okay, let's put it into stocks then. Then you talk to some people like, well, I make a lot of money. I have $30,000 a month. I don't really know what to do with it. Oh, okay. Well, what's your business? Let's go buy this other business, and you have a vertical. And they're like, oh, okay. And then you go and do it, and then they integrate it, and they're like, oh, yeah, that was a really damn good thing. Now I'm making $60,000 a month. And it's like, yeah. Yeah. And to me, money is just a tool. There's a lot of emotion that people attach with money. Like in the first Moab trip, I was pleasantly surprised that people weren't asking people how much money they made.
Mm-hmm.
But with 50 guys, you can feel the wanting to know, right? Because if someone has $10 more than you, then they're more successful than you. And like, there was a couple moments where I was going to light some dudes up, right? Where they're talking about things and it's just like, that makes no difference. You know what I mean? Like, do you find yourself successful? Well, I don't know. Well, that's because you've never defined it for yourself. So define what success is to yourself and then measure what your success is against what you define. It's like finding your integrity, right? Like integrity, it's very personal to everybody.
It is,
what
yeah.
do you think integrity is? It's the same thing with success. You got to define what success is for you. And to me, success is relationships. And so when people ask me if I'm successful, I normally hem and haw around it because they're asking me if I'm financially successful. And because I'd be like, oh, I'm absolutely successful with relationships, but you're not asking me that. You know what I mean? So what do you think? What do you think success is? You defined it for yourself yet?
I guess not like an actual written out statement like I have with some other things, but to me, I would just define success as happiness. Like if you're happy, you're successful. And that can come in a lot of different ways, right? If you're going through a breakup with someone, you're probably not very happy in the moment and you're not going to be considering yourself successful at relationships. Money is going to, and wealth specifically, is going to be a way that can aid happiness. I did in high school, my senior year, for a senior project, I did a big, I didn't do a study on it, but like it was a full semester worth project, right? And we had to study a bunch of things and like whatever we wanted, right? I ended up studying the brain. That interested me. And somehow I got tied into how finance and wealth affect your happiness and what you spend money on, right? And it was determined this, back in 2015, anything over $76,000 didn't make people any happier. So their happiness with money did go up to 76,000. And then after that, it didn't matter. And that's because all of your basic needs are met, right? Like you aren't worried about where your next meal is coming from. You aren't worried about paying rent, or your mortgage or any of that. So I do think that money plays a role in success if I define it as happiness, but there's so much more beyond just that. I mean, it's not a simple thing, right? Nothing in life is. It's a complicated topic that deserves a lot more than just this is success, this is not. There's a lot of connected systems within it.
Well, see, and I would even, in that example, I wouldn't even use money and success in that, because money is just the tool that brought them stability.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, really, it's like, yeah, people are happy when they're stable. It's like, yeah, if you make enough money that you can pay all your bills, you're living happy, you don't feel like you're scrimping by, you're saving a little bit, so you feel like you're preparing for the future, you're putting some money into retirement, so you feel like you're preparing for the future, you have money to go on vacation and to buy a couple nice things. It's like, yeah, you don't really need to be, making millions and millions of dollars every year. And I've really found, and to me, like making a lot of money, a lot of money too, like that's relative, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk to like me versus Jeff Bezos, I'm making nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's dudes that make a lot of money, and it's like, it really doesn't bring you more happiness, because if that's all you're focused on is the money, you have like let other things fall to the wayside. And generally to me, it's relationships, right? So your relationship with your wife and your kids is kind of fallen, or like even your friends and like people that kind of support you, and that's where you find joy, and there's a lot of people that do that. There's people for 10 years, they disappear, man. And they go balls to the wall, and they got to make that time up later on, and they normally do, if you want to know the truth, you can do that. You can grind, put your head down, and then build those relationships up later. I mean, even guys in the We Are the They, right? I mean, there's been a lot of dudes that are just like, man, I don't have any friends left because I was so focused on my business, and then some guys are like, I'm so focused on my business and my family that I don't even have time for friends. And that's okay. That's just, it is what it is. But then once they kind of make it, then they kind of go back to like, no, I actually do need friends. I need connection with humans. I need to hear new conversations. And then I bring those conversations into my other relationships, and I just become a more well-rounded person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it goes back to that whole, life balance thing, right? In most of the circles I'm in right now, people say that there is no balance in life, and that they hate that term life balance and stuff, which I agree to a point. Like you're never going to have, everything smooth, even, equal, right? But the way that I think of life balance is like a person walking across a tightrope with one of the poles or whatever, balancing, yeah. Right? As you start to dip towards one too much, maybe you spend all of your time with family to the point that like you don't have a stable career. Well, then, yeah, finances are going to dip and your family life's going to go up. But then you have to kind of correct that and dip back down, right? Yeah. So I think that's really where the life balance comes in, is being conscious and aware of the actions that you're taking and the effect that they're having on your life in general, and then adjusting them as needed to try to maintain that good, even field, right? Yeah. You're never going to be there. You're going to have ups and downs and everything, but it's just addressing it, seeing it, and then taking action to change it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny too, when I was, as we're talking about this, I'm remembering being a kid, and I remember if someone lost their job, And I'm talking when I was, it's like 35 years ago, right? When I was 5, 6. It was like devastating. Like the community kind of came together and they're like, oh, this man's lost his job and we need to go help him. And the community like kind of rallied around these people and like helped them find jobs and, like really helped them get over that bump. But as long as everyone had a job, like everything was cool, right? Everything was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back then, the reason why that was so devastating is because it really did like crater their balance. It like threw them off and they didn't have, they weren't stable and like all this stuff was kind of coming in, right? And now you go to like our age group, right? Between 20 and 40. And it's like these ding dongs make their life unstable every day with spending habits. Like it's bananas. It's one of the reasons like with college, I'm like, you're starting off life insanely imbalanced.
Yeah.
And the number one cause for divorce is financial issues, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because it just bears down so much pressure, right? You start losing respect. Really, when divorces happen, they lose respect for each other. That's what happens, right? If you cheat on your spouse, she loses respect for you, right? If you can't provide, they lose respect for you, right? Or if you're doing things that financially hurt the family, whether you're the wife or the husband, right? So if you're making good money, but your wife blows it all, because you guys can't figure out a budget or whatever, right? I mean, then the husband starts disrespecting the wife, right? Well, it doesn't matter how much money I make, this freaking chick's going to just blow it, and I really see that, because I've kind of paid attention to marriages a lot longer than probably, you have or younger people than us. And I look at it and I'm just like, dude, that's the financial stress. It's when they stop respecting each other. Like, this guy can't provide. Like I know a lot of women right now that have divorced their husbands because their husbands can't provide. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at their life and it's like, I mean, I knew one guy was making like $130K a year and his wife worked and she divorced him because he couldn't provide. And it's because they blew money like crazy. And I think that's kind of the downfall to our age groups, millennials and Gen Zs. And what are you considered, by the way?
I'm that weird one that's in between.
In between?
Like, I think technically I'm a millennial, but I'm like the last millennial.
Yeah.
Because I was born in 97, so whatever that is.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, I'm born in 81, so like some people say I'm a millennial, some say I'm Gen X. I claim Gen X. There's a stigma with millennials. But I do not fit in.
That's the same. Like I can't either one. There's no good option either way, right?
But but they live a way different life. They don't mind renting. They live for experiences. I see a lot of things. It's like, well, it's cool to go to Italy in your 50s, but it's way cooler to go when you're 20, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, there's truth to that, right? But at the same time, it's like, but not if you take a $15,000 vacation when you can't afford it and you put it on credit cards.
If you're doing it right now at the expense of when you're in your 50s, that's the issue I think we're talking about. Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up the whole respect thing, because I've always believed that any crime that ever happens is because of a lack of respect. And that can be a lack of respect for another person, or it can be a lack of self-respect. Yeah. Because a lot of people, they lash out because they don't like themselves, and subconsciously or internally, they just take it out on other people, or they just don't respect society and the people in it, whatever they may be, right? And I think that if we could solve the issue of respecting other people, spouses, wives, ourselves, the world would be a different place. There wouldn't be nearly as much crime, and it wouldn't be as intentional. So I definitely agree with that whole spiel on respect and how you can lose it and gain it.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I'm thinking through a lot of problems in my head that could be solved with just two people respecting each other. There's just certain things you won't do because you have respect.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting point.
So, Mark, a question that I've heard, I want to say 2.5, 3 years ago, and it just kind of stuck with me, and I ask it in settings like this, where we're just kind of talking and asking, is what's a question that you've never been asked but that you want to answer, or you feel there's a need to answer? It's just something that people don't spend time addressing with you.
What's the question? Interesting. Okay. Is the intention behind that to more like tap into some knowledge I have that people don't talk to me about, or is it just like questions that people never ask me?
Just questions that you've never asked, and it's almost not underrated. It feels odd that people have not asked you this.
I'll tell you one. I'll tell you, the only one that can come to mind right now, and it's kind of a selfish one, and it's interesting. Very few people in my world are they ask me like, "Hey, how are you really doing?" You know, they like. Everyone, I think, assumes that my life is amazing, and or I have at least have control of it, and I'm handling things. Now, the truth of that matter, it is amazing, and I do handle everything, right? And so the answer to that is always good, but I have a lot of people that kind of come to me with like their own problems, which I love. I don't mind kind of dealing with them. But it's very rare that I have people that like ask me like genuinely like, hey, like, or have a concern about me. And so it's probably because I'm decently well put together, but yeah.
Decently.
Well, I mean, everyone's got their different things, you know, like I've kind of solved most of my problems the last month, but you know, there was a period there for like 3 to 4 months where I had a whole bunch of things in my businesses that were like up in the air, and they were all hitting at the same time, which was the problem, right? Mm-hmm. There's always problems, and there's always, you know, you're always just fixing things and pivoting and fixing things and pivoting. That's like my whole world. But when you have like 5 or 6 major things kind of hit all at once, and they're all decisions and things that I have to make, like that's overwhelming, and it's a lot. And so, but it's also why like I'm very good at siloing things, right? So when I'm here doing podcasts, right, my mind's in the podcast world. Like I'm here to have fun conversations, to ask questions that I want to ask. It's why I don't prep. You know, I just want to be very in the moment, very present, and just ask questions, right? When I'm at work, I'm a machine, right? Like I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to work on your team. I don't want to answer the same question a million times. I want to like get done what I need to do. I want to get the deals in place, and I want to get done because I understand how time works, right?
Yeah.
And then I also need to and want to interact with my employees, right? So I need to come out and say hi to them. I got to come in every morning with a good attitude, and which I normally have. I mean, 99.9% of the time, it's good morning, everybody. What's going down? You know?
Yeah.
Hey, get your hair done. What's going up? You know, give me a high five. You know, what's up with you guys? Where are you going to lunch today? You know what I mean? Like I'm just like. I talk to everybody as I whittle my way over to my office, you know, and then I say, you know, then I tend to spend time with people, you know, if they're unloading a truck or something, I'll walk out to the back and talk to my guys in the back of the shop. And I have to stay in constant contact with some of my businesses are out of the state, you know, I do a lot of that via text. And yeah, I mean, it's, and sometimes it can be a lot, you know, but when you have like major things hit, you know, and I've had some friends, because I've said, I'm like, yeah, dude, things are just like rough at work. Well, what can I do to help? And it's like nothing. Like nothing. It's all stuff I have to deal with. You know, I need more time. And I think one of the reasons why it got really stressful the last few months is because I was coaching football.
Oh, yep, that's right.
Normally when I'm at work and I have stressful stuff, I just text my wife and be like, I won't be home tonight. She's like, okay, you know, good night, babe, love you. And I'll just work till 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. I just don't leave until it's all done, right? Because I kind of need that every day to like come into like new problems and new things. I hate shit that lingers forever.
Yes. Right? Yep.
Especially because I'm really good at making decisions, you know, which is kind of weird to people, right? It's kind of off-putting. Like if you came to me and you're like, hey, should I buy Apple or Pepsi stock? I'd be like, Apple. You'd be like, oh, okay. You know, then like I walk away and then people are like, oh, he just kind of said that. Did he actually know what he's talking about? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, that's like stuff I've already predetermined. And so like when I'm in situations where I'm just like, yeah, boom, 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 like rapid fire answering questions, it's really easy for me. I'm also, I think I don't know if it's a humble brag, but I'm good at like being humble enough to say like, I have no idea. We'll have to think about that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you ask me something. If you talk to me inside my expertise, very decisive. Outside my expertise, I'll give my opinion, but also tell you that I'm outside my expertise. And then some things I have no idea about. So like I was in LA with a bunch of movie producers on Thursday, and I didn't talk at all. Like very, very, very rarely. And you know me, I have a lot of talk in me.
Yeah.
And my cousin was like, dude, like you're being really quiet. And I'm like, I don't know what these guys are talking about. They're talking about the way that movies work and how they produce things and how they built things and like all these different things, right? So, so I'm with all these guys, right? And they're talking about editing movies and I'm just like listening and I'm just soaking it in like a sponge, right? Because it's very interesting, right, how movies are made. But they're talking about the back end, how the production gets paid and how they make TV shows and all sorts of stuff. And then they end up, they call it shit canning it. That's when the movie just goes into a can and sits there and might never actually be released. And so the reason why I was in that meeting, because we're taking my spirits business and these guys are going to buy equity into products and we're going to place them into movies. And then we're going to take the producer of the movie and equity that person into the product as well. So we don't pay anything.
Okay.
So they're putting their own product into movies. So take like The Big Lebowski, right? You've seen that?
It's been a while, but yeah.
Yeah. So you know how he always drinks a White Russian?
Yep.
Right. So the White Russian is like this underlying theme, and that would have driven massive sales, right, for the White Russian. So what we're going to do is write actually into the script that he would have a White Russian with a McCormack vodka. Right.
Gotcha.
And then you'd have a friend be like, why do you always use that vodka? And it's like, dude, because this is the only vodka that's good inside of a White Russian. Right. Something like that. And then if that movie hits, you get 50, 60 years of, some cult classic where they're saying McCormack vodka over and over and over. And it just makes you think. Right. There's another movie that had, I can't remember the actress's name, but she drinks Remy Martin out of a Solo cup. Right. And the guy was like, how the hell can you drink Remy Martin out of a Solo cup? Because Remy Martin's looked at as a ultra premium brand, right? And she goes, it's the only way to drink Remy Martin. I ain't some bougie bitch or something like that. I can't remember what she says in the movie, but they're talking about it, right? Well, the sales of Remy Martin went up like 2,000%.
Wow.
It just like exploded because people go to the movie and they go, I've never tried Remy Martin, or I didn't realize it was a high-end one, or like, what are they talking about? Well, why is this really hot actress in this movie who's a badass like drinking Remy Martin? So they go and get it. Yeah. Right. And I argued the fact, this is the one thing I said to them, I go, guys, I'm like, my gut feeling, and I have no idea. Right. But when you place like Bud Light in a movie, right, I don't think that hits. I don't think people in the audience give a shit that it's Bud Light. But if we were to put XYZ ale in there and the actor grabs it and says, oh, this is the most refreshing thing ever, boom, and they drink it, people in the audience are going to go, well, I've seen Bud Light, but I've never seen this. Like, what is this? And that's why I think with product placement, sure, Coke might pay $1 million to have a bunch of Coke cans in the movie, right? But I think it's a waste of money for Coke, right? I think that product placement in movies needs to be new things that people have never seen before. And and we had a discussion about it. It was interesting. So, yeah. But we're off on a major tangent on this. But yeah, no, it's like, it's kind of me giving advice, right? Like, yeah, I tend to only give advice and make decisions quickly in my kind of expertise. And then but I love jumping in conversations with people and just talking to them about their expertise and learning and seeing the stuff that matches. Yeah. So, yeah. What about you, man? Now you're in like We Are the They. I mean, you just hear people give advice all the time, right? It's kind of like a incubator for people giving advice. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about it? Do you ever listen to advice and think that dude's full of crap, or do you have the discernment yet?
I've got an interesting take on advice. I think that it should be just that, advice, not something that you have to do, right? There's a lot of people that they give their advice and they expect you to take exactly what they said and go and do it, right? But I think that if you were to give me advice, it's up to me to weigh that advice with my situation and see if it would work with me, or if somebody else had given me advice, maybe theirs is different, weigh that as well. It's not meant to just be taken blindly and ran with. You should really see if it works for your situation and if it resonates with the choice that you're already going to make, right? Because I'm going to make the choice that I want to make regardless of what anybody else says. I'm going to do what I want to do. And what you say is going to play into that But I'm not going to do something solely because you think I should do it. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I used to give advice in my 20s, right? Just having a conversation with friends and I would say something, right? And I've offended a lot of my friends over the years. I'm glad they stuck with me, right? Because I'm like blunt. You know what I mean? It's like, well, this is what you should do in my opinion, And they're just like, I actually told one friend to get divorced for a bankruptcy situation, and then like do a bankruptcy because his wife had brought in some debt into the relationship, right? I'm like, well, just go down to the courthouse and get a divorce. No one needs to even know. Get rid of the bankruptcy as soon as it's been discharged.
And then it's not tied to the relationship, right?
And go back down there and get another piece of paper that says you're married. Get remarried again. Well, it offended his wife big time.
That's fair. Yeah, if she heard it from a different point of view. I mean, it's coming through him as a filter, so.
Oh, no, she was there.
Oh, she was there.
She was there when I said it. Oh, yeah. But it was offending her because she was, I'm like, I might get divorced, but I don't know, dude. Half the time in that situation, I'm just like, you're barely married. Like, what does it matter? You lived together before you were married. Like, no one's going to know. No one will ever know that you did this. They could have done it, and I have no idea. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But there was a time, though, where I was like, when people wouldn't take my advice, and then it would, like, beat them down that they didn't, or they did the opposite of what I said, and I'm like, well, there you go. You know what I mean? And then I was like, I get offended about it. But for a long time now, and you'll hear me say this, right? The more you're around me, I'll be like, I'll give you some advice, but it's worth what you paid for it. Right. And then bam, I'll just give them advice. And to me, that's been a nice way for me to say to people kind of subconsciously, like, here's my advice, take it or leave it. Like, you don't have to do what I say. And I'm not going to judge you for it if you don't, Yeah. Because if you give people, it's kind of hard when you give people advice, right? If you give someone advice and then they don't take your advice and then something really blows up in their face and then it becomes very clear that you were correct, they almost like don't want to associate with you anymore because then they're embarrassed that they didn't do what you said, and then they
really,
yeah, it's happened to me a few times.
If that were to happen to me, I'd be like, I would address it and be like, yeah, should have listened to you. Like that just seems like the smart thing to do.
Yeah, but you're smart and mature.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I mean, giving advice is a double-edged sword. It really is. You got to kind of
it is, and that's
it properly and.
Exactly. That's why if I'm ever asked advice by some of my friends, I say, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
Not here's what you should do.
Yeah.
Right. And I make it very clear, like with my background and everything that I've done, here's what I would end up doing in your situation. Yeah. But you do you.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was interesting. And, our last We Are the They, St. George weekend, we actually all got in a circle and gave advice to people.
Yeah.
And it was interesting what people said during that, and like the different perspectives. And one thing that's funny with me, I actually love conflicting dialogue. Like I love to argue with people. Love it.
Okay.
And so, because I think arguing with people really makes you grow, right?
Yeah.
So say you have a life opinion, right? Like, what's a good life opinion? Try not to think of one that I just called someone out on. Like you have to be married to be happy, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And see, I would love, like, I actually like to take the opposite position in things and then like argue it, right? Not in a contentious way or like, you're an idiot, that kind of stuff. But like come up with like 3 or 4 really good points and then just sit there and actually debate and counter. Have you ever debated? Like officially?
In 8th grade. So.
Nice. Yeah, so did I. 8th and 9th grade, yeah. And so I love debate, man. It was really fun but it makes you strengthen your position and it makes you strengthen the other position.
And it helps
weaken your position and then weaken their position. And if you can do that, you really, it's a really good way to like, ponder on something and kind of decide which side you're going to take.
Well, and it also makes you think outside of the box.
Oh, yeah.
If you're arguing for something that you don't actually believe or want or anything, it really does help you consider other people's opinions and think outside the box. And I think that's beneficial to go back to the respect thing, right? You can see things from their point of view, even if you don't agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really helps you. I mean, I've got, with doing business all over the country, man, I have a lot of friends or business associates that they're all over the place. They're conservative, they're liberal, they're democratic, they're, I want the government the hell out of my life. You know what I mean? It's just like all different ways of thought. Like I've talked about abortion with all sorts of people. And to be honest, man, I don't even really know where I sit on it, because there's so many different passionate sides of that argument. I actually get annoyed that every 4 years that becomes a topic that we vote on, right? Because each president picks a side, and then half the country is like, well, if he's for abortion, I'm for him. And if he's not for abortion, I'm for him.
They choose their candidate based on one policy.
Yeah. It's very common in American politics. We're very much sheep. And so, I mean, the general population shouldn't be Democratic or Republican.
No.
You know, if it was just an actual clear pond and you didn't know which way you're going to go each time, that would be an ideal situation. But we don't want to get into politics on this podcast.
That's right.
It's one of my no-nos. Not that we can't talk about it, but yeah, it's giving advice is interesting. What's the best advice you've ever given someone?
Best advice I've ever given someone? Probably just advice for myself. Advice to just do what I want to do. Comes back to, a year ago, just quitting everything and doing what I wanted to do. And I think about that day a lot when I decided that I didn't want to go with the career path that was lined out in front of me, which honestly, it's harder than I make it out to be. I had a great career path lined up, especially at my age. I had really good mentors in the whole field, and I was going to be, from everyone looking at me in the field, saw high hopes with where I would be in the next few years. Yeah. And so it was hard for me to leave, but I keep going back to that and thinking, and it was just, why spend one more day doing something that you don't want to do? Like there's no reason to spend one more day doing it. And it just kept hitting me like, no, like, you want to leave, then leave. Find something else and make it work. And so that's probably the best advice. And going back to, selfish things, that was me telling me to do something. So I don't know if that really counts as advice.
Yeah. I think so. That's the best advice, man. That's stuff you give yourself.
That's true. Yeah. But as far as advice to other people, I don't know. Because I can't remember very specific advices that I give people, because again, it comes back to me not really caring. That sounds bad, but not caring about the situation. That's not what I'm saying, but more as not caring if they take my advice or not.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm going to tell them what I would do, and if they take it, great. If they don't, great. Like, it's not going to affect me or our relationship. So there's very few times that I can pinpoint I told somebody to do this or that, and here's how it worked or didn't. That's just not something that I've really kept on to, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. You also don't really know what advice people take and then how they implement it, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of percentages that you think your advice could fall down to, where
exactly,
you don't know how they take it.
Yeah.
Oh, good, man. Well, speaking of advice, dude, you know the freaking drill.
Oh, I think where this podcast is different, and I know the drill, we have to flip it to your best 2 minutes of advice.
Oh, there you go.
Because I knew that question was coming. You didn't know it was coming for you. Let's switch it.
I like that flip up because, other than you, no one else is ever going to ask me that.
Yeah.
My best 2 minutes of advice. Okay. That's funny because you caught me off guard. Okay, number one, who you marry is the most important choice that you'll make. Because that person needs to actually support you in the decisions that you make and tell you when you're wrong and stand their ground. And you have to build the perfect symphony of respect and love and conversation and hard work and ethic together. And you have to build those things. For us, we're going to marry women generally, right? You're going to have kids with these women. So if you choose to have your wife stay at home, or if you think that's important, then you need to find a woman that's going to stay at home with your kids, right? Mm-hmm. And you need to build your life in a way that she's able to do that, I think it's important when you get married to have a plan. And before you get married, a lot of your courting, or at least once you're engaged, should be spent around, okay, let's really write down our plan. Where do we want to be? Where do we see ourselves? You know, like where do we really want to go with this? You would think that sounds like common knowledge, right? That people would do that. It really isn't. I've met so many people that like, I've never asked them that. I've never asked my spouse that. I don't think there's one question I haven't asked my spouse. You know, I know everything about her and vice versa. She knows everything about me. And we kind of continually do that down the road. So the most important decision you make is who you're going to marry. Your career makes no difference. I just feel like you can get into any industry, any career, you can make money. If you find I hate it when people say they're going to find their passion, right? Because I think people's passions should not be monetized. And I'm leaning more and more towards that all the time. Like, I don't wake up every day and hope that people buy marker boards. I don't give a shit if they buy marker boards. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a passion of mine. I don't think it brings joy. I don't think buying basketball hoops brings joy either, you know? Now, if your joy is, watching your kid play basketball in a very, very nice rec center, and I just happen to be part of that, and they say, hey, your hoops are what my kid grew up playing on, it's kind of cool that you're the owner of it. Like, that brings me a little bit of joy, but it has nothing to do with monetizing, my passion.
Yeah.
I think, for me, relationships are my passion. I love relationships. I love connecting with people and talking with people. And so that's why the podcast is dope. So I guess this would kind of be my passion, but I also don't monetize this either.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and my last bit of advice, so I don't go over my 2 minutes, is don't lie to yourself. If you don't lie to yourself, you won't lie to others. And if you don't lie to others, you won't be a liar. And that's a little phrase, but what I mean by that is like, just don't lie to yourself. Tell yourself the truth. Is this the person I am? Am I being the person that I want to be? Am I working on myself? Am I doing all these different things? Like, be honest with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror a lot. Write down your goals and stay true to them and be able to pivot. A lot of that too is like, oh man, I've invested all this time and energy and I just have to keep on grinding. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to be honest with yourself and pivot. If you're doing something that's not yielding what you thought it would, you were wrong, and admit it and pivot. That's life. A lot of politicians, they'll kind of like hold them down to, well, 40 years ago, you thought this. And it's like, dude, if we're electing someone who hasn't changed their belief in 40 years, that's insane.
Yeah.
The world has changed in 40 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think people need that. And that's what I mean by saying, don't lie to yourself. Like, pivot all the time. What do you want? What makes you happy? What do you want to do? If you find passions along the way, stay in them, leave old relationships behind. That's one of the hardest things probably in life. And it's like, man, just stop lying to yourself and just pivot. Don't hold on to things for too long. I've only got 80 years on this life. I have 39 more. You have, what's yours? 55 more?
55
more summers,
I don't know.
Bro.
By that point, maybe we can tack on another 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully we can download our brains into an AI bot and then just exist forever.
There we go. Why not?
We'll see. Until we run out of power. Oh, yeah, that's good. But yeah, so that's my advice. So all my listeners out there you go, man. Stop lying to yourselves. I don't say that in a harsh way. I just mean take the time to not lie to yourself. Sit down and just be as honest with yourself as you possibly can.
Love it.
Hey, buddy, thanks for coming on my podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. This was a fun time.
Good. Yeah, this won't be the last one for sure, dude. I've got to get 300 of these things done.
There we go.
This is, bro, what number is this, you think? 35-ish, 36-ish?
I'd say probably, 34, 35.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Because we released 27, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we have 3 or 4 more. I think 4 more that are ready to go.
Oh, okay. So this might be like 32.
Yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll release it. So... Well, my friend, thanks again. Thanks for coming on. You're the best.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.